Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live. Thanks for sticking around. It's good to have you guys here. We're here with Ime Umoh today, and I'm very excited to be talking to a Baltimore native because I also am from the Baltimore area. And today we're going to be looking at transforming your travel footage into social video. Ime Umoh is a content creator drawing inspiration from his hometown of Baltimore, Maryland, and Nigerian roots. It's really excited to have everybody here. Thank you, Wade Cuff, for being our moderator in the chat. Hello over on both YouTube and Behance. Make sure you guys are joining the Adobe Live community by subscribing to the YouTube channel and following Adobe Live on Instagram for the latest streams, updates, and more. We have a lot to get through today, and we have
Yeah.
plenty of time. So I'm excited to learn a lot about all of his travels and a lot of the fun video tips that we can get from him. But I'm actually going to let Ime introduce himself. So welcome to the show, and how's it going?
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be on. And it's going well. It's been a great summer, wrapping up with a bunch of footage. And I'm really happy to be here to talk about Premiere Pro and how I'm using this to really tell my story of my travels throughout the world.
Yeah, so you're a big traveler. You have some good frequent flyer miles then.
Pretty much. I mean, this journey started in 2018. So before I even got into being a full-time creative and a drone pilot and a travel content creator, I was actually a full-time technical project manager. So I started my career right out of UMBC, right here in our hometown. And I worked for a few years until I finally, started to really tap into my passion. So I left my job in Silicon Valley in 2018 and really started traveling the world. I brought a $200 camera, Osmo Pocket, and a drone, and really used YouTube University to teach myself how to use both. And then naturally, the storytelling content creation came, and that just allowed me to build on my skill set, but also really continue to travel the world by offering my services as a content creator and a photographer and a drone pilot to travel brands and tourism boards. So it really created a way for me to, like I said, tell my story, tell authentic stories, all while using these little gadgets that I just picked up and learned just a few months prior.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to hear about your both drone experience and also I've played around with the Osmo Pocket as well. It's like a fun
Okay.
little like spy camera, which is always kind of fun to like whip around. I used to use that at my old agency. But what are we kind of looking at today?
Absolutely, absolutely. So today I'm going to be taking viewers here on Adobe Live through Premiere Pro, and I'm going to be walking you through my process of how I pull together both mobile footage and footage from my drone to create engaging, compelling travel stories. So we're going to be spending most of the time in Premiere Pro today. I'm going to touch a little bit on Media Encoder to export those files and shorts for social media, but today we're going to cover how you go from I have a bunch of clips on my drone and my camera to how can we create a story that has voiceover, has captions, has music, and how can we export that to the best settings to share on social media.
Fantastic. We can all upgrade our social game. I certainly need it. My first
Yeah.
question for you would
Yeah.
be when you're approaching a project like this and you're going on a travel shoot, are you someone who normally has like a rough idea of the shots that you're going to get beforehand? Or are you more so like go get as much as you can and then kind of come back to the storyboard phase when you're done and have all of your footage?
Yeah, I think it really depends. I mean, if I think about my journey, it would definitely be, in the beginning, I just wanted to basically spray and pray. I know I had a
Yeah.
great camera, I had a drone, and I just knew that the world was out there and I wanted to capture it all. So definitely a lot of spraying and praying and coming back with a lot of footage. But as I progressed through my career, as I started working with more brands and as started becoming more intentional with the type of stories that I wanted to tell, I started to do a lot more planning ahead of time. So really researching the destination where I was going to, using Adobe tools and stock footage to actually see what's been captured this far. To really help me be more intentional about the stories that I would tell. So today, I'm definitely going to be taking travelers and content creators, through what it's like to actually have a little bit more intention, with your shots. How do I plan these stories? Even from the script to some of the cuts to some of the music. And then if we have time, I'll talk a little bit about, hey, what can you do in some situations where you just come back from your vacation with a bunch of footage and you don't know what to do? how can you pull out some of the best clips to create something still meaningful and engaging?
Fantastic. All right. Well, let's hop into it then.
Doubt, no doubt. Cool. So, like I said, today we're going to be using Premiere Pro. I'm right here in Google Chrome now, just looking at my website. But of course, please go ahead and follow me on Behance. I would really appreciate it if you gave my profile some love. And if you don't have a Behance profile, you don't have you don't have Creative Cloud or Adobe Suite yet, highly recommend you get it. But here you can just see some of the work that I'm proud of, showcasing some of my drone photos, even some photos that I took for clients, and then just some personal projects here. So before we hop into Premiere Pro, definitely go ahead and check out my profile on Behance. And first thing I'm going to do here, let's just go ahead and open up Premiere Pro. So I'm going to go to the 2023 app here. Now, as you can see, I already have a little bit of data and information loaded, but let me X this out real quick because I want to show you guys what happens when you come back from the vacation and you just want to throw a bunch of footage in. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to open up Premiere Pro. It'll take just a few moments to load, but once we get that, we should get a nice clean blank state. And when you open up Premiere Pro, you're typically going to see this, right? Now, the way that I use Premiere Pro, I like to actually use templates because I do a lot of the same actions over and over again. But let's just imagine we're starting brand new. I'm going to open up a project. Now, what this is doing and that is actually taking me to the directory that Premiere Pro is calling. But I know that I keep all of my Premiere Pro templates on an external hard drive. So I'm going to go click on that external hard drive right here on the left corner there. If you can see that, it's just Extreme SSD.
Yes. Are you normally kind of organizing files before you're hopping in, or are you kind of doing that within Premiere?
Exactly. So I do a little bit of both. So actually that's a good point. So before I actually hop into Premiere Pro, I'm going to show you where I keep my files. So let's just say I just came back from Ghana, for an example, and I know that I have a bunch of drone clips. I know I have a bunch of mobile phone clips, and I want to be able to put those together. So the easiest way to do that for me, in just this example, I'm dumping everything on my desktop. Now, again, this is just for the example of today, but I would highly, highly recommend for all of your clips, whether they're from your mobile or your drone, try to find an external hard drive or even a separate dedicated folder on your computer to be able to store them correctly. So as you can see here, I'm just going to click up in the left corner here on my desktop. These are just all the files that I dropped from a mobile video shoot just a couple months ago. But as you can see here, these are just the raw clips. I mean, these are pretty much my day in Baltimore, and that's what we're going to be able to use to tell this story. So I've just dumped the files now. Whether you're using an iPhone or Android and you need to dump those from your photo app, just make sure that you put them in one place that you can reference for this specific project. Okay.
It's a great tip. I mean, just to always have that umbrella and the idea that you know that you're not going to run into something from, your random trip to Costco or something.
Exactly, exactly. And if you travel a lot like me, you'll have a lot of destinations. So what I really try to do, and I'll show you in a little bit, is really name those parent folders by the destination. So today we're just talking about Baltimore, but as you can see, I have my mobile clips here. And then let's just say that, I already recorded some voiceover. On the way back on the plane, I had some ideas. I opened my iPhone app and I just had a little voice note recording. I have that file here on my desktop as well.
If you ever wonder what Baltimore, Maryland look like.
So we'll get into that in a little bit. So just to recap, I have my videos that I want to add into this travel story. And then I have my audio clip here that I want to add as well. To your point, again, having things in folders and organize your footage is one of the best investments you can make with your time, because you're going to save time as opposed to scrambling and trying to look a bunch of different places. Having one folder is really going to help. And I'm going to show you what that looks like for me. So again, I do have templates. Right now, I'm showing my Adobe Live September 25th folder. And what I really want to do here is dump all of my mobile clips, any assets that I'm going to include in this video into this profile. Now, I won't be going through all of the subfolders. Let me just take that down. So I won't be going through all of the subfolders here today, but this will just give you a really, just a really overview perspective of how I kind of organize my ideas into edits. But here you have project files. Media is where all of our footage is going to go. If it is a client type of project, I have documents there for admin, any contracts, exports, or where I'm going to put all of my exports once I'm done in Premiere Pro, and then any assets that I may need to add to this. So first, we're going to be focusing on media because, again, we have video and audio. So I'm going to click on media. I'm going to go back. Just going to click on this media folder right here. Now, you don't have to follow this same structure, but this is what works for me. Again, I work on hundreds of projects a year, thousands of hours of footage. So I really need to be organized. And this is what's worked for me in the past couple of years. But nonetheless, within that media file, folder number one is going to be footage. Now, again, you can see a lot of cameras here. That's because I walk around with a lot of cameras, but on this specific example today, we're going to be talking about mobile footage, and that's where I want to put all of my mobile files. So if I go back and I open up this May 18th folder, downtown Baltimore, let's just take a quick look and see what's in there. Okay, so this is where I was actually in my office in downtown Baltimore. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to take all of these files. These are right from my phone. I'm going to take all of those files and I'm just going to drag them into this mobile footage folder. And as you can see there, it'll take a couple seconds, but it looks like it's uploaded. So perfect. All of my files are now in the folder. Now, if I
Great.
take a
Well, we're going to take just a quick minute. We're going to hop into standby for just a second. We're going to actually sort some technical things out real quick, but we'll be right back in just a minute.
Sounds good.
All right. Welcome back, everybody. Thank you for waiting. And we are excited to have you guys back, and we're ready to hop back in.
Sounds good. Let's do it. Awesome. So just before we hop back in, just want to recap. Not sure if anyone is joined, but we are organizing our files. So before we jump into Premiere Pro, before we start putting our music and our files down and start trying to craft our story, first, it's very important that we organize. And luckily, this is something that you can do outside of Premiere Pro. That's going to take a little bit of time, but it's going to save you more time in the end. So what we've just done now, I've pulled up essentially a project folder template. Now, this is a template that I use on every project, but what we want to do is take all of the footage that we shot on our mobile device and our drone, and we want to be able to put that into our project folder so we can then load that in Premiere Pro. As you can see here on this media folder right here, this is where I keep all of my footage. Now, as you can see here within this top folder, I have a bunch of cameras here. I have everything from camera A, which I think is my Osmo Pocket, to camera B, which is my drone, camera C, my Sony A7 series, and a bunch of GoPros and other things. But for today, we're going to be focusing on mobile footage. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. And as we can see, I have now dumped all of my mobile footage that I want to include in this video into this project folder. So as you can see, we have maybe 80 or so clips from this specific day. And just to kind of get a preview, I mean, this was me just walking around Baltimore, grabbing some UGC, just really detailing what a day would look like. And that's the story that I want to tell. So great. So we got the mobile footage in, and then we also have some audio that we need to import to our folder. And luckily, because of this file structure, I do have a folder for that. Again, you don't have to follow this same kind of file structure, but it does help if you can start to memorize how you organize your footage so you can call on it and find it quickly. All right. So the next thing,
you recorded that voiceover on the plane?
Not this one. Actually,
okay. I was so surprised by it. It sounded like you said like you did it like on like a little voicemail. I was like, wow, it's so crystal clear.
No worries. I need a better mic for that. So this is a great example. Now, we were talking about our mobile footage, and we were just talking about the voiceover that was pre-recorded. And I want to be able to add that to that folder. And as you can see here, there's not a folder for voiceovers, but nonetheless, I can add that just by right-clicking within this folder. I am on a Mac, by the way, but I'm going to create a new folder. I'm just going to call it 07, and I'm going to follow that same structure. I'm just going to call it voiceover. Okay. And then from my desktop,
if you ever wonder what Baltimore, Maryland look like,
nice. All right, we're going to grab that voiceover and we're going to drag it over to my voiceover folder. Okay. And now that we got that, we have our mobile clips, we have our voiceover, and we're going to add some drone footage in Premiere Pro. But nonetheless, this is how I organized all of my footage. I didn't do this early on, and I found out the hard way. I was in Zimbabwe, and the client, one of the friends of a client actually asked me for a specific drone shot, and I could not find that drone shot buried in all of my footage. So I said from that day, I'm going to be sure that any clip, I'm going to be able to find that in at least 4 clicks or less. And that just meant to be organized. So again, if you're traveling throughout the year, and even if you don't travel that often, it is highly, highly, highly recommended that you take the time to organize your footage, because you may need to find it a couple months down the road. It's September right now. We're heading into Q4. So a lot of year-end reels, summer reels are coming out. Having your footage organized, this is going to help you speed up that process. All right.
That's great. Also, hello to everyone in chat that's saying hello. You got a lot of people popping on in. Thank you guys for being here. Hello to Jan, Umacorn, Christian, and Shuvo. Also, nice. Hello to Mima and Gonzo over on YouTube. Thank you guys for being here. If you guys have any questions while we're going through this, please continue to throw them in the chat, and I'll be sure to relay them over to Ime as we're working through this.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Okay, so now I got Premiere Pro up. Again, I'm just going to bring that up just by double clicking here. Just again, always make sure that you're running on the latest version. Adobe does drop features that are really helping editors and helping storytellers like myself. So again, make sure that you're always updated. Make sure that you're always on the latest version. One of the best ways to do that, just by clicking up in Premiere Pro, you can see right here, I believe I just updated it this morning. So 23.6.0 is the version that I'm working on, just in case you're watching this in the future. And let's go and hop in. So as I mentioned, one of the quickest ways to speed up my editing workflow is to actually create templates. And that's what I'm going to open today. I have a Premiere Pro 2023 project template that actually lives on my external hard drive. Again, you don't need to have an external hard drive, but just for processing speeds, it does help. I'm going to go back to my external hard drive folder right here. And as you can see, I actually have a 2023 Premiere Pro project template. So I just want to open that up. And imagine this basically being a blank slate. Even though it's a template, I have a blank slate, and all of the folders that you probably saw in my external hard drive, they essentially mirror this same kind of structure. So if I just hold this up from left to right, let me bring this over real quick. And I go back to my desktop here. I'm going to click on Adobe Live. This is my project folder that I'm working out of. And as you can see, we have project files, media, documents, exports, assets, essentially everything in Premiere Pro that we need here on the left side of my screen. So I want to be able to I basically want to be able to mirror what's on my external hard drive folder into Premiere Pro. So the first thing I'm going to do is import my footage. Always want to make sure your footage is imported first. I'm going to go here to this. Actually, let me refilter this. Sorry, what I just did there in the top in Premiere Pro in this left panel, I just click that name. Looks like a kind of an up or down arrow, just to make sure that these are in chronological order. I'm going to click on media. Then I'm going to find the footage folder right here, folder number 2. And as you can see in Premiere Pro, this folder is actually empty, but I wanted to mirror the files that I have on my desktop. So real quick, I'm going to press Command. Now, again, I am using a Mac, so I'm going to press Command. I'm going to press I on the keyboard, which is import. And then now Premiere Pro is asking me, hey, Ime, which files do you want me to bring into this specific bin? Bin is what they're called in Premiere Pro. We call them folders elsewhere outside the system. But hey, Ime, which files do you want me to bring in to Premiere Pro? And just like that, I'm going to go back to my desktop. I'm going to find my project folder right here, Adobe Live, September 25th. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to click on my media folder. Let's click out of that real quick, go to footage, and then I'm going to find my mobile footage. And as you can see here, these are all of my clips. I'll just select all. Ooh, actually, let me go back.
And are you shooting on an Android or are you shooting on an iPhone?
This is most of this footage from this year was on an iPhone 13 Pro Max.
Oh, cool. You got that big phone. You got the
big phone,
mini
man.
tablet.
Definitely in the pocket. But you know, the crazy thing about it is actually starting my career, you know, working with DSLRs, working with the Osmo Pocket. But I've been getting so many more requests for vertical short form video. So I made the investment. I never had an iPhone before last year, but I said, hey man, I'm getting a lot of like short form requests and I really want to speed up my workflow. So I made the investment. I got an iPhone and I have been creating the majority of my short form footage is from my iPhone. Still use my DSLR for some projects, but my day-to-day carry is definitely my iPhone. And it's been really interesting to look at the world in this vertical format.
Yeah, definitely a change of composition.
Indeed. I mean, for me, it allows me to be a better story creator, you know, a better story creator, a better content creator, because it's challenging me to compose my shots in different ways. And maybe if I had maybe if I was creating a longer film, I would be shooting landscape. But I think it just allowed me to be really creative with the drone shots, with the mobile shots, to really, you know, dive into the short form content, the short form video production that the industry is now demanding.
Yeah.
So nonetheless, hey, while we were talking, I got my mobile footage imported to Premiere Pro here. You can see that everything from that folder is now here. And this is the footage that we're actually going to work with. I'm going to do the same thing for my audio. If you remember, we had an audio track that we actually want to import. So here, I'm going to go back. Let me close other panels just to keep things simple here. I'm going to go back to my media. And then as you can see, I actually have a voiceovers file here, a voiceovers bin here. So I'm going to click down. You can see there's nothing in there now, but I'm going to click on that bin. I'm going to press Command and I on my Mac. And then I'm going to go back here. Let's try to find that folder. So my desktop, Adobe Live, September 25th, media, voiceover. And there we go. It is now imported into Premiere Pro.
If you ever wonder what Baltimore, Maryland look like.
Awesome. Cool. So I got my voiceover, I got my mobile clip. So now we're actually ready to start cutting. Now, if you remember just a few moments ago, I did start my career kind of running and gunning. I would just go out, shoot, spray and pray, and hopefully that I came back with something good enough to edit. This time around, we're actually crafting a voiceover before we actually edit. So this is more the intentional approach. I'm actually thinking about what I want to say, what I want viewers to be able to get out of this video that we're watching. And I believe that is the true beauty and essence of travel videos. It's a way not for a content creator to just show off, what they're where they're going or what they're doing, but travel stories actually allow us to be a bridge. They allow us to build community. They allow us to tell stories from our perspective. So that's what we're going to do today. We're talking about intentional storytelling. And to do that, I'm going to be using this voiceover. So let me go ahead and clear this out for a second. But for the first thing that I want to do, I need a timeline. I need a timeline to be able to put my clips on. A timeline is where we're going to do most of our editing, where we're going to add our music, our voiceover, where everything comes together, our story comes together. And again, the whole theme of this is to be able to tell your story in a vertical format. So to do that, I'm going to have to create a new sequence in Premiere Pro, and that's very easy to do. Now I'm going to do two ways. I have a manual way, and then of course I do have a template for doing this, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. But if you wanted to create a sequence, let's say I'm not doing this in any folder right now, I'm just going to press Command and then N on my keyboard. Now this should be the default keyboard shortcut for Mac users, but Command N is actually going to bring up this new sequence. When you think of sequence as timeline. So new timeline, new sequence. And this is where we can actually define the settings for our sequence. Now, if you're going to be posting vertically, maybe YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, even on X, we want to actually create a sequence that is vertical. So 16 by 9. So to do that, by default, what you can do here, after pressing Command New, you're going to click on this digital DSLR. 1080p is fine right now. That's my recommendation. And I know everyone has a preference. Every creator is going to have a preference, but I love editing, and I love editing my sequences in 24 frames per second or 23.967. Now, again, this is preference. You'll find a lot of videos on the internet talking about why 30 frames is better or 60 frames per second. But for my style and how I like to be able to tell stories from camera to actually timeline, I prefer 24 frames per second. Ryan, I'm actually curious, what do you prefer when it comes to timelines?
Yeah, I feel like I'm normally around the 24 frames per second. Sometimes I'll do 30, but 30
Right.
sometimes feels a little too smooth. I know it's not that much smoother, but sometimes it feels too high production that it loses that human element. So I like to do 24 frames per second too.
No doubt. No doubt. And again, everybody has their preference. I mean, I like 24 frames per second because 24 frames per second is a lot of what we see in movies and what we see in cinema. So 24 frames per second is really the closest frames per second that we have to our actual eyesight in terms of motion blur, in terms of how we see things passing through films. But 24 second is my go-to. If you shoot at 30 frames per second and want to edit in 30 frames per second, no worries. You can do both in Premiere Pro. That's one of the great things about using this tool. You can actually customize how you want to edit and how you want your footage to look. But for today, on this Adobe Live, talking about travel storytelling, we're going to be using 24 frames per second. So I'm going to click DSLR 1080p, and then I'm going to go down to, whoops, I keep double clicking. Let me press Command N again. But by default, I'm on 1080p, 24 frames per second. If we look at some of the settings here, you can just see here that the time base isn't 24 per se, but it's 23.967. Essentially the same thing. Nobody will notice. And if you get questions, just tell them to refer to me. But 23.967 is what we got. And then I'm just going to name this sequence. I'm going to call this, let's call this 925 Baltimore Love. Let's give it a unique name. Cool. Okay. And as you can see, I just pressed enter. So I have created this new sequence with the settings at 23.967. Let me go ahead and X this out. So as you can see here, this is my title. And it's created a new sequence up here in the left corner. And if you ever are curious, I can't find my sequence, or maybe it's buried in one of these folders or bins, just look for this symbol right here. These symbols in the project pane are going to tell you the different types of files that you have. For this one in particular, this is a sequence file. If I go back, let me just go up here to my footage. Let's go to mobile footage. As you can see right here in mobile footage, it's a little bit different icon. So again, if you ever get confused and you don't know which is which is a video file or a photo file, or maybe in a sequence file, just be sure to check these icons because they will tell you what type of item or asset you're actually working with. So let's go back to the let's go back to our sequence real quick. Now, if you can see, they actually by default put this sequence in the voiceover file, but that's not where I want it. When I come back and I say, hey, I want to re-edit this film, I want to make sure it's in the right place. So let me go back to my project file. I'm just going to level up here. As you can see, this parent level project file is located. I know, let me go ahead and delete these. We don't need these. Created those by accident. But we know that the sequence is actually in the voiceover file, which is incorrect. And I want to be able to move that to a file folder where I actually keep all of my sequences. So I call those edits and deliverables. Deliverables for me are anything that I'm giving to the client or exporting. So I'm going to open up that folder. I can see here that I have a folder for sequences or timelines, and then deliverables. Again, for me, deliverables are anything going out of the door. So I'm just going to take my sequence just to put it in the right place. I'm going to take this sequence, I'm going to left click, and I'm going to drag it down until I can see it, this deliverables folder highlighted. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop that in there. And then now you can see that within this voiceover folders, the sequence is not there. This is now correct. And then if I go down to my sequence folder, we can see that the Baltimore Love project is now there. Now, I know what people are thinking, hey, Ime, we're like well into this thing and we haven't even started editing yet. Yes, I cannot stress enough how important organizing your project folder and your project files are, because this is going to save you a ton of time. So now that we've got
admirable. My project files are a lot messier. I'll tell you that right now. It's the chaos. It's the cleanup afterwards for me.
Exactly. And I mean, hey, there's nothing wrong with that. I know, we all work different ways, but this is the most efficient for me just because I travel so much and I capture so much footage. It is imperative that I take the time to actually organize. So I really want to stress this to any aspiring travel creators, or you have a lot of footage from your drone or your mobile or even your camera. It's gonna be the best investment you can make to actually organize your files. So let's start heading towards some of the good stuff. So I got this timeline here now. And it's looking kind of dry, Ryan. I mean, I don't have any music. I don't have any photos. I don't have anything. It's just a blank timeline. And, this is one of the things I love about Premiere Pro, because even with this blank timeline, it allows me this opportunity to take these clips, combine these in different ways to be able to tell stories to reach people. So as they say, this is where the magic happens. Like, this is where the magic happens in Premiere Pro. Now we're going to start organizing our photos, okay? So
Right.
what I like to do is, when I have all of my footage here, you know, what I used to do is say, okay, I got all my footage here, and actually, I'm going to change this view here. I have a list view here, but if you ever want to change the view of Premiere Pro, maybe you actually want to visually see what you shot, you can go ahead and click on this icon view. And this is actually going to show you from a nice preview view. Instead of kind of like, okay, what was clip 00861? I can actually see, okay, my day started at Bromo Tower in Baltimore. Then I went to the Hippodrome, and then I have some nice drone shots. Then me in my office celebrating my first front cover magazine for Visit Baltimore, and then that's kind of ending the
Congratulations.
day. Thank you, man. Thank you.
Very cool.
Ended the day right here on the train back. So nonetheless, here are all my files, but I want to make sure when I edit this video, I'm only using the best clips, the cream of the crop. The cream of the crop. How do I do that? Well, for me, what I do in every project, let me go ahead and close some of these other panels. I just don't like to see a lot of, tablets open. So just by right-clicking project and closing other panels in group, it closes everything else, and it just leaves me with this nice view here. But nonetheless, I want to be able to take all of those clips from my phone, and I want to be able to chop them up into the best clips that I've got. And to be able to do that, I'm going to take these assets and I'm going to create a call. A call is basically my code word for select. So I got all of these, 10-second, 12-second clips. How can I get that down to 1 second, 2 second, 3 second clips that I have the best footage? I'm going to create a call timeline. So as you know by now, I love templates. I don't like reinventing the wheel because I work on editing projects so much. So as you can see here now, I actually have a vertical call template actually lined up. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to leave this template for now, but what I'm going to do, I'm just going to simply right click and I'm going to push copy. I said I'm going to right click and press copy, and then I'm going to paste that below. And to paste, I just press Command and V. And what that did is make a copy of this timeline, and then it puts it right down here. I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to call this my Adobe, or actually let's call this Baltimore Love timeline. All right, Baltimore Love. Actually, let's call it Cull timeline. Okay, now this is gonna make sense. I know it's like, hey, Ime, we got one timeline that we're editing. We got another timeline that we're just calling. I'm gonna explain the difference to you right now. So the call timeline, again, we want to be able to take our best clips that we got. We just don't want to dump everything that we shot on this timeline. We want to be able to take the best clips. So I'm gonna go into my media folder. I'm gonna go ahead and click on that mobile footage folder again to give me that folder view that we see here. And me personally, I like to edit in chronological order, especially on a travel day. You're going throughout the day. Maybe I'm eating breakfast, or maybe I go and see a site, and maybe you stop by an activity. I like to edit chronologically. So, and to ensure that I do that, I like to use two things. Number one, you can just use the file name. And as you can see, if I click on that top here, this is the top in the project folder, I can see that 86, 88, 89. So it's actually in chronological order. So that is one way you can actually tell, okay, when did I shoot this clip and what's the next clip? The other way is that you can actually enhance your, you should be able to enhance this. It's a long one, but creation date is what I use. Creation date is what I use. And I actually don't see that here, which is a good example. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click on this top bar here. I'm going to click meta display, and I'm just going to go to this metadata display and type in creation date, and I can see that it's not clicked, and I want to be able to enable that column in Premiere Pro now. So I'm going to click on creation date. Okay, and even though I can't see it, I'm just going to drag this on over right next to the file name. So perfect. I can now sort by file name, by chronological order, and just to do my due diligence, I can use the creation date, and I can see, hey, Ime, you were, up pretty early that day, 8:36. We started and then it goes to 8:52 and then it goes, from 10:11 all the way to 6 p.m. when I'm ending the day. So again, you don't have to do it this way. You can, of course, use the name to kind of tell which shots were that you did in order. But again, you have a couple of options to use that metadata display here in Premiere Pro. All right. Now it's time to get into the good stuff. So, hey, Ime, I got all these clips. I got a timeline with nothing on it. What do I do now? We're going to call our files. So this is how I do it. I love going through each file and just kind of looking through each clip. So if I'm double clicking on this clip here, it should bring up let me move my zoom right here. So it should bring up this source file and this program file. So two good things to know. Your source file is going to be linked back to what you are viewing in this project panel. Okay, so if I click on this file right here, 0089, it's actually going to show me in this source file. Now, if I'm looking at the program file, that's going to be everything that's on this timeline. And as you can see here, there's nothing on there, so we're not going to see anything in this program timeline. We're going to talk about this rule of thirds in a quick minute, and I'll show you how I use that. But for now, let's start calling these clips. So I'm going to click on 86. That's okay. Not really, the story not really a clip that I wanted to use, but I can now see this nice drone clip. And even before I start going through, it's a nice kind of motion. I'm going to press I'm going to press I on my keyboard. That's going to be my endpoint. And then let's go to about right here. I can see that it's 3 seconds. I'm going to press O, and that is my out point. Now, we want to bring this selected clip or this selected portion of this clip onto the timeline. And the easiest way to do that is on your keyboard. That's going to be just the comma sign, the comma sign. So when I press that comma sign, it's essentially going to take this selected clip and put it on our Baltimore Love timeline. And if you can imagine, I'm going to do this for a bunch of clips. And what we'll have here is a timeline full of our best clips. So let me go ahead and just take a couple of clips just for the purposes of this demonstration. And I'm going to show you and kind of walk you through what I look for when I call my file. So this is a nice drone shot. We are talking about drones today, so I feel like that's a pretty good shot to have. And again, I just want to go down by chronological order. So that looks like, let's go up a little bit. We started on 88. Cool. Let's check out 89. Okay, we got a tight shot there. Now, I'm not sure if that looks familiar to you, Ryan. Are you familiar with Bromo Tower downtown?
Yes, I've actually been on top of it before, which was terrifying and also very cool.
I can imagine. I mean, I've definitely seen the perspective from my drone, but I haven't been lucky enough to actually make it up. So you got me beat there.
Yeah, no, it was definitely once in a lifetime experience.
Indeed. Definitely one of the best places to actually see Baltimore from a view. And hey, if you have a drone, I mean, it just doesn't compare. But if you have a chance to actually go and see the artists, support the local artists, highly recommend checking out Bromo Tower. So I got
it's actually an arts tower now, right? They converted it into different like studio spaces.
Exactly. So you get a tour, you can actually go and talk to artists, and if you're lucky enough, you might even be able to catch a view. So highly recommend it. Okay, so we're just working through this timeline now. And again, what I like, I mean, we're talking about editing today, but I always try to get medium, wide, and close, right? So this is probably my wide shot. This is probably a nice close shot, and this is medium. So, we're talking about editing today, but when you're shooting and when you're creating your travel videos, always try to think about medium, wide, and close shots. It's going to give you more real estate to work with when you're actually putting these stories together. So let's keep going on here. Looks like I was just kind of walking around and viewing some of the signage. Oh, this is a nice shot of Hippodrome. So same thing. Let's actually take a step back here. This is a 2-second clip. 2-second clip. And I can tell that by just looking at the time code right here. It's about almost 2.5 seconds. But I said, hey man, I just like this part right here. It's nice in frame. I can almost see the whole Hippodrome sign. So I want to start this clip where I can see that H at the top. I'm going to press I. And then when I want that clip to end, I'm gonna go right here. I'm just using my scroll. So I'm just holding this kind of scroll arrow right here just to walk me through this timeline. And I'm gonna put it at a place where I think it can stop. And then I'll press O on my keyboard. And then I'm going to press that comma, and that's just going to automatically put it on my keyboard. So before we go any further, I mean, we got what is this? I'm looking at 10 seconds here in my timeline. We have 4 clips, and I have about 10 seconds worth of a video. So let's just play it to see how it looks without any sound, without any audio. And you can kind of see, even without any voiceover or any music, it's actually coming together. Now, editing in vertical footage, you're going to need as much space as you can get. A lot of the times if you're used to editing in landscape, you're not going to have a lot of real estate. But the beautiful thing that I love about Premiere Pro, and especially these windows and panels, is actually I can make this view a little bit bigger. So what I just did there, let me go back. I just left click on this program window, and I'm going to drag it over until I can see green here right on the side. And that's just going to give me a little bit more real estate. And I've just found that when I'm editing and I'm working with vertical files, it's going to be much more efficient for me to actually have a bigger kind of view on this right side of the pane here. So again, if you're in Premiere Pro, feel free to just play around, customize your windows. For me, I just like to see as much as I can. But again, you may want to put your program folder, a little bit more inwards, and you just have a bunch of options. But again, I'm going to put it all the way on the right. It just allows me to see from top to bottom, all while keeping everything within the window. And that's my tip for Windows. So let's keep working through some of these files. I'm not going to go through every single one, but definitely let's try to skip down a little bit. Okay, so we got a nice wide shot.
Well, also, while you do that, we're about halfway through our show. So I just want to take a quick moment to also relay to the audience. If you'd like to nominate yourself or someone you know to be a guest on Adobe Live, you can submit your recommendations for creatives in the tab on Behance. And then also, Adobe's Teresa Au has conversations with some of people who make up the rapidly expanding creator economy, including Puna Design Studio and educational platform I Love Creatives, illustrator and author Misha Blaze. And many more to come. Subscribe now to follow along for the full season of adobe.ly/in-the-making, or find the show wherever you listen to podcasts.
Nice. All righty. So
my
we
mouth stopped
are
working halfway through that entire thing. So I hope that made sense to everyone. If you have any questions about it, check out In the Making. It's a great podcast, and it's still kind of in its early infancy. So it's a great time to get on it and tell your friends about it. And then you get to know the cool podcast before everybody else.
No doubt. And honestly, that's just one of the things that I love about just being a part of this Adobe community, especially the Behance community, is that, not only do I go there to get inspiration on shots, on travel, or even designs, but I just love how Adobe is just reaching back, really taking the time to sit down with creators and allow us to really share, what really makes our work special. So no matter what level creator you are, whether you've been creating for a couple of years like me, or you just got started, or you just got the new iPhone and you want to create some new videos or something like that, Adobe is a really, really good place to start, to learn, to be inspired, and to also build community. So definitely shout out to Adobe. And I'm looking forward to actually listening to their podcast as well.
Yeah. And so you also were there holding up your Visit Baltimore magazine. Which is pretty cool to see.
Indeed. Yeah, this is on the call timer. So we're definitely going to fix this this kind of backwards lettering right here. But yeah, nonetheless, just a little bit of background around this. This is actually my first aerial cover photo for a travel magazine. So definitely shout out to Jordan Lawson, was the muralist who painted this in Patterson Park in Baltimore, Maryland, one of our oldest and most historic parks. Visit Baltimore actually asked me to come out and capture this as a part of our 2022-2023 summer visitors guide. So it's just a blessing, as an aerial photographer, be able to, have my work and also collaborate with other artists like Jordan Lawson to be able to show the beauty of Baltimore, to be able to show Baltimore from a different perspective. So definitely.
Yeah, I mean, they have some of the best murals of any city that I've ever seen. There's murals all over Baltimore, just from all different types of artists, which is really cool.
I will say that if you come to Baltimore, if you're lucky enough to visit Baltimore, you will see why we call it Charm City. And then I mean, that's one of the things I didn't talk about this earlier, but that's really one of the reasons why I love flying drones. Baltimore is a place where, if you talk to some people maybe who don't live here, we may not get the best rep, but I feel like with this drone, with the opportunity to be able to tell stories from the sky, I can really change the way people look at Baltimore. And I think seeing Baltimore from an aerial perspective can completely change the way you look at this city, and also just help you appreciate it more, even if you're from here. I mean, I've got, comments, all the time. It's like, man, I didn't even know, Baltimore looked like that. I didn't even know Patterson Park looked like that. And, to me as a creator, that's what it's all about, making my city look as beautiful as possible and using the tools around me to do so. Cool. So
And it's looking good so far.
it's looking good,
So
man. I
how
feel
far
like
are we into it now? We have
I,
about what, like 30 seconds in there now?
yeah, we got a good 30 seconds. And I'm feeling really confident about it. So if we just kind of scroll through our call timeline, again, the purpose of our call timeline is to really select the best clips that we want to use in our timeline. So just by scrolling through, I made a couple spaces here just to kind of take us from scene to scene. But I feel like I got a good 4 clips. We're starting here at Bromo Tower. You can see me picking up the magazine. And then last but not least, we've got some photos of me downtown. So you can see it's a little bit blown out. We're going to talk about that when we start color grading. But I feel like in terms of phase 1, making our selects, we're good to go. Now,
And so you said
this
that those spots in between are just mostly for your organizational efforts so that you kind of can folder them off within the timeline to know when you're between scenes.
Exactly. Now, I do that because most of the time, I mean, I'm culling this Baltimore footage today, Ryan, but most of the time, I'm actually going to be working with a much wider call timeline. So if you can imagine, I've done this calling exercise for all of my mobile clips this year in Premiere Pro. And I'm going to show you why. And I know it sounds crazy and crazy organized, but it's going to make sense when I show you how easy it is now for me just to literally drag and drop the moment that I have an idea. So yeah, these kind of spaces represent, okay, if I'm looking at this from kind of a wide perspective, I can see, okay, there's some good clips in here, one scene, and then this is a completely new scene, and this is another one, and this is the final. So just a little cue there that I like to use in Premiere Pro to kind of help me know which clips are where. All right.
Cool. And you're a
So
little bit more precious with the actual timeline, and your call is more of your space to be a little bit more sloppy, right?
exactly. Call is pretty much the draft. And then our timeline, our exporter, our deliverable timeline, that's going to be the place where we actually bring everything together. Everything's going to be nice and tidied up and color graded, and it's just gonna go nicely together. So okay. Speaking of which, that timeline, I think it's time to get into it. I think it's time to start telling our Baltimore story. So I've got my call here. Now, on a normal day, I would call all these clips and it would be a lot longer, but I feel like we got enough. Let's go back to our Baltimore timeline. So again, in this example, this is actually going to be what we're exporting today. Whoops. Let me double click that and take that back down. So I don't know if everybody just saw that, but I double clicked this title. And if you double click the title, you actually turn this into a full screen view. I don't want to do that just now, but just a quick tip if you're in Premiere Pro. But nonetheless, this is going to be where we edit this Baltimore Love timeline. And again, I talked about before, we want to be intentional. We just don't want to take clips and kind of put these together. We want to actually tell a story. So for that, now I can import my voiceover. So I'm going to go back to my media folder. We're going to go to our voiceover photo. And hey, what do you know? My voiceover file is right there. I'm going to take that clip. I'm going to go ahead and drag it on down. So this is now on my timeline. Now, again, because this is an audio clip, you won't see any clips here in that video timeline, but you can see this audio file. Okay, so this is the audio file that we just dragged over. And if I go back and I press space or play on Mac, here's what we get.
If you ever wonder what Baltimore, Maryland looked like, have no fear. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know from an aerial perspective.
Awesome. So that's just a kind of a 7-second clip intro to my travel video. And you'll notice that a lot of successful travel videos, they have some type of voiceover that actually engages, the viewer. So in this quick example, I'm saying, hey, if you ever wondered what Baltimore looked like, and this is just a trigger for anybody that's watching or kind of scrolling through their day. Hey, what does Baltimore look like? If I'm interested in that, they'll stay and watch, but definitely want to be able to hook them in the voiceover. But that first, I guess 7 seconds is pretty much my intro.
If you ever wonder what Baltimore, Maryland look like, have no fear. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know from an aerial perspective.
Boom.
Also,
Awesome.
Hello to Alex Hogue, who's here and saying he's excited to see you on Adobe Live.
No doubt. Alex, what's up, man? Glad to have you here. And yeah, actually, the last Adobe Live session I was in was Alex's. So I really appreciated the tips that he provided for editing, editing on social, and just bringing files in. Alex is also a drone pilot. So I'm really glad you're here. And this is definitely full circle, man. Thanks. Awesome. So we've got a little bit of voiceover here. Now, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but what we can tell now is that the clip is about 40 seconds long. And of course, if you know my footage, if you know any travel content that I'll put out, we got to have some music. So now that we got our voiceover laid out, let's find some music so we can start trying to edit to the beat. And I'll explain what this marker is when I'll get back. But for music, I'm going to go to my window up here. So the window is going to be all the way up in that top bar there. And I actually like to go to my audio workspace. Now, if you're in Premiere Pro right now, you're looking at this workspace for you're like, hey, man, I don't have Cull workspace or, First Row Cut. These are actually all custom made workspaces that I like to use. Again, I'm not one to reinvent the wheel every time I open up Premiere Pro, but, if as much as I can try to create templates, especially for workplaces, I like to use those because it just helps me move a little bit faster. Nonetheless,
that's really interesting. So you normally have like certain workspaces that you defer to if it's a certain type of project that you're working on.
Exactly. So, you can kind of see my workflow kind of play out. So I have 00 right now, culling, which is what I do first. We import the clips, we make our selected clips. So I have a workspace for that. It's a screen that's positioned that is going to be the most friendly for me to work with, being able to view file names and then bringing those to the timeline. I have my first rough cut workspace, which is probably going to be more of, I have my source monitor, my program monitor, some audio levels, and maybe even captions. And then the source program view. Some projects, I'm just there to be an assistant editor, to be able to just make sure everything is fine before we send it off to another team. But nonetheless, for this workspace in particular, I'm going to be going to audio. And I don't know if
also, as far as captions go, do you normally put them into your social works, or is that mostly for other products that are outside of social?
I do. So I typically do captions towards the end of my video. I try to say captions, coloring, and any text-based kind of graphics towards the end. But that's also one of the great things about Premiere Pro. They make captions super easy, and we're definitely going to get into that.
Great.
Cool. So let me get my music. So real quick, so I'm not sure if a lot of people know this, but within Premiere Pro, you can actually search for stock music. So what I did there, I was in my window, I went to workspaces, and I just want to pull up audio. Now you may be, by default, it may, be edit or essential graphics or essential sound, but what I want to do is click on essential sound and then find, and then go to browse up here in the right corner. And this is actually going to allow me to browse copyright-free music straight from Adobe. And this is so clutch because I used to have to go to another program or go to a stock footage site and download it and import it. But here in Adobe, it's all here for you. You don't even have to leave this app to be able to bring in music. So let me just do a quick search. I'm going to type in Afro beats.
Is that your go-to? Do you normally feel like there's like a regular key search that you go to? It's normally Afro beats, or is it kind of from project to project?
It is from project to project. This project in particular, I want it to be upbeat. And Afro beats is a type of genre that I directly relate to, being Nigerian. It's a kind of music that I always try to put to just try to uplift people. Afro beats is a lot about movement. It's a lot about action. It's a lot about feeling good. So just by default, I just kind of put that into Adobe Stock to see what comes up.
Yeah.
But for other, you know, it may be more instrumental, maybe more low key. If we're trying to tell a story about a particular subject or a nonprofit, I may be able to use that. But nonetheless, I'm going to use Afro beats. I'm going to click enter here and let's see what comes up. Okay, so sunny afternoon
If you
sounds
ever
nice.
wonder
Okay.
what Baltimore, Maryland look like, have no fear. I'm going to show you everything that you
Ryan's
need to know
moving.
from an
Okay,
aerial perspective.
we might have a hit, man. We might
Right
have
from
a
the
hit.
beginning.
So I mean, this is kind of rare, but hey, on the first try, I'm really loving this track. The fact that I see Ryan moving and having a good time lets me know that this is
Oh
definitely the
gosh.
jam we want to put on
I'm
our.
not a good litmus test. I feel like I move to a lot.
This is definitely the type of jam that we want to put on our travel videos. So what I've done, I've literally, let me do that again. So just had a
If you
nice
ever
little
wonder
listen.
what Baltimore, Maryland look like,
Nice, man. And the great thing is I can even hear my voiceover starting to, you know, take place. So what I'm going to do here with my left click, I'm going to take this left click, I'm going to drag this music file right on over to my timeline, and I'm going to make sure that that's under my voiceover here. Now, if I
Yeah, I
kind
also
of
think that
stretch,
was a really great call out that you mentioned that when you are previewing it, it automatically already takes the audio that you have within your file to showcase how it actually fits. Because if you're like looking on it on like a different website or something, you might have to do a weird thing where you know, press play over here and press play over there. Whereas this just lets you automatically preview it, which is really nice.
exactly. It's almost like Adobe went into the mind of creators and asked them, "Hey, what would you like to see? Let us make that for you." So again, it's you know we some of these features that are released, you know, you just think to yourself, man, I'm just so happy that Adobe takes the time to actually talk to creators and ask us what we need. What are the tools that you need, and how can we make those improvements? So just a really slick way, something that's like goes under the radar that many people may not notice, but if you're editing a lot of travel videos with voiceover, you may want to hear how your voice sounds over music, and that's just another great feature. So while we were getting into this edit, you saw that, I mean, this clip was actually kind of long. Our voiceover is only what, 38, about 38 seconds, but we need this, we don't need that long. So what I'm going to do here, actually, let me go back here. And one of my favorite features of this is the remix tool. So what I've done, I've right click on my music, on this music file, on this music track, if you will. And I'm going to go to remix here. I'm going to highlight remix. I'm going to go enable remix. And as you can see, there's a target duration there. So that is actually wrong by default, but let's go ahead and change that real quick, because we know that our voiceover track is, let's see, let's 40 seconds. So I'm going to click here. We can see that we are now back in the remix settings. And I'm going to say, okay, let's take this down, type a 0 in there, and let's just call this 40 seconds. So 40 seconds and a little bit of change, but let's see if we can get it down there. And as you can see, just
So
like
fast.
that, super fast, man. And I mean, actually, let me turn this
if you
sound
ever
down a
wonder
little
what
bit.
Baltimore, Maryland look like,
Awesome. Okay, so it's coming together.
everything that you need to know from an aerial
It's just incredible because when I first got into video editing, that would have taken at least 30 minutes to cut up the different parts and make it kind of sound natural and find the beat and make sure that it's all, you know, lining up perfectly. And you just did that in like 3 seconds.
Just like that, man. The magic of Adobe. So what we just did is I said, hey, Adobe Premiere, I have this 3-minute long file that I need to condense down to 40 seconds. And I just don't want it to cut off. I just don't want it to end abruptly or start abruptly. I need you to help remix this into a 40-second version. And that's exactly what happened. Now,
best views of the city and also see night.
now, just for all the super users out there, you will see these breaks within the line. That actually means that Adobe is cutting that sound or remixing at this point. So it may normally it may continue on, but in this example, it's actually cutting to say, hey, because we got to get this down to 40 seconds, we're actually going to put this break in here, and then you have a nice little fade out. So, man, we got our we got our voiceover, we got some music, Ryan's jamming, I'm jamming. I think it's time to actually start putting some clips onto this timeline to bring this thing alive. So what I'm going to do up in my Adobe window here, I'm going to go back to my workspaces and I'm going to put this on my first rough cut. Now, you're probably not going to see this. This is a custom made workspace that I've created for myself, but I know whenever I want to make that first cut, this is the timeline or the workspace that I'm actually in. Okay. And you can see it looks a little bit disorganized, but let's go ahead and clean this up. I'm going to right click, close other panels here. Let's just give this program, let's just give this program window a little bit more. Okay, cool. Okay. Now, how do we get our footage on this timeline? So real quick, I'm noticing something, Ryan. I think this is a 4K actually landscape. And what we're actually aiming for is a vertical 9 by 16. So what we want to do is, just to check this, I'm going to click on this timeline. I'm going to go to my sequence settings and 16 by 9, actually 1920. So we are in the right space. So let's see here. I'm going to take my Baltimore Cull timeline. Whoops. Now, I'm not
it's
sure.
Also fair to also mention that you also are working on an ultra wide monitor, and you're being nice enough to condense it down to us to the left side of the screen. But it's also interesting as a video editor that you do have this long monitor, and I guess it's probably very helpful for you to be able to really spread out your space. So there is a little bit different of workflow in order to stream today, but we appreciate you doing that.
No problem. No problem. Yeah. So I am editing on a kind of an ultra wide monitor. Most of my timelines are typically longer for client projects. But for today, we're going to make it work. We're going to make it work. So as you can see, I'm just kind of fooling around with some of the windows. And this is where I save most of my time. But as you can see here, this Baltimore Love timeline is below, but my Cull timeline is above. And I really like this flow because when I start to edit, when I start to put these pieces together, now that I have my music and my audio, I'm just simply going to drag and drop. Now, before I do that, I want to make sure that as I drag and drop, I don't, kind of mess up my voiceover file. I don't want to cut that off. So what I'm going to do over here on the bottom left, I'm going to lock my voiceover file, and then I'm going to lock my music file. And then from there,
so that just doesn't let you touch anything down there now, right? Like you can't accidentally mess it up.
Exactly. Only if I unlock this and I say, hey, I want to get rid of this part of the music or something like that, it will actually allow me to. But yeah, once I have it locked, I can't, put that clip over any clips. So that's just a really good tip. If you find yourself kind of dragging and dropping and it's not looking like how you want, yeah, definitely try to enable the locking feature on that timeline. So cool, we got to get rolling because we want to make a good video. And I'm still not seeing that this Baltimore Love timeline is in the vertical format. So just as a quick workaround, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go back into my edits and deliverables folder right here in the left panel. I'm going to click on sequences and timelines, jump into the template folder right here, and actually have templates for Instagram, for vertical, for reels, for square. Again, this just helps me. But again, if you are creating a lot of vertical content, definitely consider creating some templates. So I'm just going to copy. I'm pushing copy here, and then I'm going to push paste on the bottom. I'm going to recreate another timeline. Let's call this Baltimore Be More Love thing.
You're way more organized than me. Normally, I'm like, and we'll call it just work, please stop, please help.
Oh, good, man. Hey, man.
Bro, just punch the keyboard with a bunch of random letters. I'm like, that's my new main composition. That's great.
Oh my gosh. All right. So what I'm going to do now, just for the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to drag these down to my new vertical timeline here, and then I'm just going to make sure that I lock those. I'm going to take this clip and I'm just going to put it right here as well. Let's get rid of this for a second. But if we go back down and I click on this timeline, perfect. We can now see that it's in the right format. So let's go ahead and get started here. Now, hey, I like to edit to the beat, and I'm just going to show you how I can kind of throw these clips together. But we'll take
Baltimore Maryland look like.
Okay,
Alex
now
says final V4 final.
I like to edit to the beat, man. It's just kind of my style of editing. And again, one of the really cool ways you can do that is, just listen to the track first. And that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to mute out my voiceover because I just want to hear the music because I want to know where to put my clips. I'm going to press play. Let me make sure I click on the clip here. Cut. Every time I see Ryan's head bouncing, I'm just gonna put cut. So nonetheless, we got cut there. We got about 3 cuts that I feel pretty good about. So as we play our clip, bam. Okay, so that clip actually wasn't long enough for us to cut, but that is okay. All right. Let me go
Alex
back.
is also calling out the split timeline use. 2 windows is very convenient. And yeah, I'll actually take something away from that today because I often am using 2 different tabs and I'm switching back and forth and copy and pasting. But seeing you just being able to click and drag it is very inspiring.
Exactly. Now, it took me a while to get here, but I will say this style of editing saves me so much time. So much so I'm actually going to open my Baltimore 2023 project. I'm going to go to my project files here. Personal work 2023. Let's check out Baltimore 2023. And I'm actually going to show you like what this all looks like in the grand scheme of thing. So as you can see here, now you can see that this is actually, this is the drone call for Baltimore in 2023. So this is literally every shot that I've taken in Baltimore all year has been put on the timeline with only the best clips selected. I've got night clips. We've got clips during the day. We've got Mount Vernon. We've got Baltimore skyline. We've got all you can imagine about Baltimore. So, and the best thing about this is if you're a creator, a travel creator, if you create timelines like this, by the time I get to my 2023 travel reel, I don't have to go and recreate a project. I'm literally just dragging and dropping.
That's so smart. Now, are those all locally stored on your system, or do you have them all on different hard drives that you have to plug in whenever you are kind of referencing this?
Great question. So all of these original files are on an external hard drive on my computer. So if I just go to my Finder here and I go to my SSD 2023, this is literally everything that I've done. Excuse me, every personal project that I've done this year. So I've been in Baltimore, I was in Boston, I was in Nairobi, Nigeria, Mexico, some client work here. I'm shooting at the MLS All-Star game. But as you can imagine, Ryan,
if you ever need a DP, hit me up. I'll go to all these places.
Come on down, man. Come on down. We'll be heading to Nigeria in just a few weeks. So nonetheless, I've created, yes, all of the original files are on my external hard drive. And then I've actually created one project file. So if you can see here, now it's getting a little bit crazy, but if you can see up in the top right corner, this is my Baltimore, Maryland, USA project file. Let me go back here, Baltimore, Maryland, USA project file. And if I go into media, just the same thing that we did with this project, I've imported all of my footage into this project file. And as you can see, I've been pretty busy. I mean, this is from January 1st, probably to September. We just shot some footage over the weekend, but nonetheless, I've called this whole timeline. So if somebody says, hey, Ime, we need a clip of Baltimore skyline, I can say, I know exactly where that is, and I can go and export it. But nonetheless, let's make sure that we get this edit out the door before we have to break for the day. I've been having so much fun and just kind of getting back into Premiere Pro. It allows me to just kind of recognize how far that I've come in this system. So nonetheless, let's see if we can work with 5 clips here, man. So got an intro, cut. And as you can see, I just added that drone clip. Let's imagine I just want to add, let's say another one, right? I'll add it to the end of this clip.
By the way, is that the Howard Street Theater?
One more time, Ryan?
Is it the Howard Street Theater?
This is
the theater that you got.
This is actually CFG.
No, not that one.
Sorry.
Howard. Sorry, I'm distracting you. Go for it. Go for it.
You're good, man. You're good. You're good. All right, so let's keep rocking. Let's keep rocking. So this may not be a 40-second project after all, but nonetheless, let's just see what we got. Let's play it through. We got 19 seconds. I feel good.
I'm going to show you everything that you need to know from an aerial perspective. Stop number one is going to be downtown.
Oh, I'm just getting a lot of background noise. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to mute these. These are the audio from these mobile clips. And I just want to hear my voiceover.
Wonder what Baltimore, Maryland look like? Have no fear. I'm going to show you everything.
Nice. All right. And I'm just going to do kind of some manual kind of audio here. So I'm up in the audio track mixer. You may or may not see this on your window, but nonetheless, I'm going to drag this down so I can see just a little bit more. And I'm going to, let me unlock this. I'm going to turn this music down just a little bit so I can see that it's an A2 is where my music track is. I'm going to bump this down. Let's go down to like -15. I really want to hear my voice since this is a travel story.
If you ever wonder what Baltimore, Maryland look like, have no fear. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know from an aerial perspective.
Nice. Okay, cool. I think, Ryan, what we're going to do, let's go ahead and make this a little bit shorter than 40 seconds today since we got to wrap it up in a few. But nonetheless, what I've showed you is how to import your footage from your camera into Premiere Pro and how to start making a timeline. We've talked about culling the files, taking your best clips, and then we've talked about how to add a voiceover and a music file to your clip all within your story, all within Premiere Pro. So this is literally my workflow and how I create these travel stories from all over the world. And I'm really happy that everybody is joining today. What I just did, because I want to cut this a little bit short, I'm going to cut it right around the right around the 18 mark. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to press C on my keyboard, and I'm just going to press Shift. I'm just going to slice that all the way down. So what it's done, it's just split everything kind of in half. I'm not going to throw this away, but I'm just going to move this a little bit to the side. And this is the timeline that we're going to be working with today. So
yeah, because you're still even working with ins and outs on your own timeline right there, right?
Exactly. Yep. So I pushed, well, I by default is in, and then O is going to say, hey, this is where this video is actually going to end. If you see, there's a little tail in there, but if I just play this through, you can see it kind of fades out. We'll work on that exit real quick, but nonetheless, voiceover, music, and visuals. And now we can start working on some of our text, some of our captions, excuse me. So I got my file here. I'm going to go up to my text panel right here. And as you can see, Adobe has actually already tried its best to actually transcribe what I've been saying. So if you ever wonder what Baltimore, Maryland looks like, have no fear. I'm going to show you everything that you need to know and so on. So I think that looks pretty good. If I just scroll down here, this is definitely going to be my top recommendation. We'll see in a little bit, but nonetheless, the text looks good. Let's go to captions, and then I'm going to push create captions from transcript. So what Adobe is going to do, it's going to take this transcript that it was able to transcribe from my voice, and I'm going to create captions for that. I'm just going to click the default settings here. Subtitle by default, this is what I use. I believe that's the Premiere Pro default option. Format, subtitle, awesome. I don't need to change any of these. I really never do, but lines sometimes it's going to be double. I'm going to go ahead and create captions. And let's go ahead and play back and let's see. Awesome. So on the right side of the screen here, we've got some captions below, but remember, this is for IG. So one of the things we want to make sure that those captions are actually in the ratio that people can see them. I'm going to go back to my project folder. Excuse me. I'm going to go, back to my project folder here. Let's clean all this up just for a second. I'm going to go to my assets and tools. I do have a bin folder for the rule of thirds. And this is just going to allow me to keep everything nice and in focus. I have my IG Reels overlay. Whoops.
That's great. And we've got about 2 minutes left. But it's really exciting to see all this and kind of seeing your whole approach to also being able to format it towards social media, obviously, because those UIs are constantly changing. But this is just something you have saved on your computer that you can use to kind of cross-reference it whenever you want to, right?
Exactly. So what I'm using right now is just a file here. I'm going to take this rule of thirds. I'm going to put it over, and I'm just going to make sure, again, all of my files are nice and clean, like everything is composed the way that I like it. And then from here, let's just say that this was kind of the final video, right? These captions look good. What I'm going to do is press Command and M on my computer. And typically I do like to export from Premiere Pro, but what I'm going to do in this case, I'm actually going to send this to Media Encoder. And Media Encoder is going to give me a few options to export while it's heating up there. And really what I like to do, Ryan, I'm not sure if we'll have time, but I like to export one version with captions and one version without captions. And I'm going to show you how I do that. So I have my clip here that I want to export. Everything looks good. And again, if you know me, you know I'm going to have a template. So I have my Instagram Reels template here. I'm going to come down to the aspect ratio, make sure it's 1080 over 19 by 20. Make sure I'm rendering at maximum depth. And as you can see, 35 is pretty good for that. And then captions, I just want to make sure I burn those captions into the video. And then for the version that doesn't have captions, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this. I'm going to right click, duplicate. And then I'm going to click on custom. And then instead of captions burning the video, I'm going to click none. And there we go. And then from here in Media Encoder, you can press play, export both of your clips that are going to be formatted for Instagram. And you can just wait. And then after they're done, you can go ahead, post, share your story, inspire the world. And hopefully,
wow, perfect on timing. I was like right down to the minute. Thank you so much for coming down to be on Adobe Live today. And thank you for walking us through all these different workflows and showing me how bad I am at organizing my files and how great you are. But where can we find you online? And we're excited to see more of your stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity. You can definitely find me on imeumoh.com. And then also, if you want to keep up with the journey, if you're interested in drone tips, travel guides, follow me on Instagram at @imeumoh_.
That's fantastic. All right. I'll be sure to give you a follow. Guys, stay tuned on Adobe Live. Up next, we've got Animation 301 with Pixie Peel with easy After Effects transitions with match cuts. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.